Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of my hard landscape series. In today's video we are going to talk all things concrete. Firstly, what is concrete? Concrete is a man-made material. It is made up of cement, natural aggregates and sand. It is then placed in a mould within reason and you can get mostly whatever size you want. Generally speaking, in mainland UK, a common paving flag size would be a 450 profile, that's in millimetres. In Northern Ireland and Ireland, we generally use a 400 profile. Other sizes within concrete tend to be a 600 profile, so that would be a rectangle, or a 600 profile, that would be a larger square. This particular flag in front of me, which I'm using as a coffee table, is what's known as a 600 by 50mm with a dimpled finish, which means it has these little sort of pimples on the top. That would be a really basic sort of precast flag, and generally speaking, it's used for things like oil tanks or areas that you're not going to see. I do have samples here of two more decorative flags, and this would kind of be more aimed at your patio area. So this one here is called Pave. It's a beautiful, smooth, white, sleek, contemporary flag. And this one here is called Travera, and it comes in like a slightly grey textured effect with a wee bit of a granite sparkle through the surface. So what is the pros and cons of concrete? So as I mentioned, concrete has natural aggregates throughout. So what does that mean? Well, essentially you could have like basalt chippings within concrete, you could have granite within concrete. So concrete is a very good way of sometimes giving you a natural stone alternative without paying a natural stone price. I'm not saying that natural stone is always more expensive than concrete, I'm just saying you can get the look of natural stone within a concrete product. So concrete, as I also said, is a man-made material, and the two products that we're going to look at in this series that are man-made will be concrete and will be porcelain. Now porcelain is baked to a really high temperature and therefore it's a non-porous material. Concrete, although as I've mentioned, yes, is man-made, it still has porous properties. Why? Because although technically concrete is not natural stone, it has the ability to behave like natural stone. So this just means if you spill wine on concrete or if you spill ketchup on it, therefore it could permeate into the surface and therefore stain it. It also means when there's heavy showers of rain, I'm not saying that the water will run through it quickly. It obviously will puddle in areas depending on how your paving is laid, and therefore over time, yes, it will either evaporate off the surface or it will work its way through. So it is worth pointing that out. If you have a porcelain surface, the water will not do that. It will not permeate through porcelain. The world of concrete is advancing all the time, and you will now find that you get things like sealers on concrete, or for example this one, as I've mentioned, is polished, and this just gives it a higher grade of non-permeability. In mainland UK it is now compulsory on commercial jobs that block paving within the concrete realm, generally speaking in car parks, does have to be permeable, and that means, for example, it wouldn't be a flag, it would be a block, but the sides of the blocks have these nodules which space them out further, and that just lets water permeate through the surface quicker. However, that will also refer to clay products, which we will cover in a separate video. So how much does concrete cost? Date of recording, concrete can cost anywhere between £22 a square metre plus VAT, right up to £50 a square metre plus VAT. It is very hard to pinpoint an exact price on concrete because it will all depend on the spec, the colour, the pigments, the dyes, the finish, the size that you go for. So those are all things that you will have to consider, and you would have to work that out in your own independent research. Date of recording, £30 a square metre would get you a nice kind of mid-range concrete product that would sort of look the part. And I would say there is something for every property type. So if it's like a 70s home or an 80s home, or it's a brand new contemporary home, or it's a cottage restoration in the concrete realm, there will be a concrete product out there for you that should suit your property. It's very durable, it's very hard wearing, but as I've mentioned, it isn't stain resistant, so you do just need to be cautious of stains. Everything in this series, I would say, is not stain resistant against rust, and that would also include porcelain. Rust just tends to be one of those stains that, you know, is very hard to get out once it settles in or embeds on a surface, so that could be something just to think about. So a word that you might see occurring in some research into your future patio, if you're planning to do a future patio, will be the word effervescence, and this will apply within the realms of concrete. So what is effervescence? Effervescence essentially is calcium carbonate. It is a white staining that sometimes can occur on concrete products. It's usually moisture based, and it is very hard to identify sometimes at the point of laying, but it may occur in paving or block walling or masonry afterwards. Sometimes it also comes from the actual mortar itself. Generally speaking, concrete flags will be laid on a sand cement base and they will be jointed with sand. Now, you can get chemical cleaners that will remove effervescence, and that is absolutely fine, but do read the T's and C's on the packaging of the cleaner that you're using. Concrete, because it's man-made, will have dyes and pigments in it. Sometimes you can weaken that colour, so you might weaken that colour out of it. So it is always just worth checking with your retailer who you buy from, or the cleaner that you're using, how strong it is, and do not, whatever you do, go over the recommended dosage on the packaging. Lastly, I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but we're going to talk about batch coding. So batch coding is so important that everything you buy, especially man-made products. So say, for example, hypothetically, your patio is 40 square meters, you've ordered it, your paving contractor arrives, and on the day you decide you want to extend by another 20 square meters. That's fine, provided that maybe it's going to be a different area or the two areas aren't touching. But if you go back to the original retailer that you've purchased from and you're hoping to get the same batch that was in circulation from when you originally bought, they may not still have it, and therefore you could end up with flags that is going to have a very visible line of difference from where one batch ends and another starts. This is applicable in wallpaper, it's applicable in wool, it's applicable in paint, so it also is applicable for paving and walling products. So it is always worth keeping that in mind before you decide to extend your area. As always, it is probably best to get a paving contractor to measure for you. These are people that will be doing this day in, day out, and they're probably extremely competent and they know what they're doing. If you have any doubts, you should order 5 or 10% more, and this just covers you for any damages that might occur on the day, or breakages, or maybe you haven't accounted for something like a drainage channel or something you need to pave around, and the paving contractor maybe needs to cut a couple of flags to get in at difficult areas. It's always worth considering before purchasing. Please check out the rest of my series to see other hard landscaping products that we're talking about. Otherwise, as always, thank you for watching.